in December 2022, which I'll go into more in depth here. Next slide, please. So why did we choose microtransit? When we restructured our service in the Manassas Park area in 2019, it gave us an opportunity to see how well each route would function. The way that they were structured in the past, there was a lot of overlap, there were loops, there were things that were hard to evaluate a route from a specific route to route basis. They were just sort of lumped together. In this case, we were able to evaluate each route independently the way that we restructured it. And in the map on the right, there's the blue line represents the Route 68 that we were operating that connected downtown Manassas to the Manassas Park VRE. It operated in a very heavy residential environment, which makes that challenging in a fixed route environment because you can't get into all the roads that you would normally get into because there's cul-de-sacs, the roads are too small for a big bus to go through there. And so you're stuck to the main road, which oftentimes puts you a significant distance away from where the population is. So as we were evaluating the route and we looked at what our opportunities were to enhance it, microtransit became that flexible service that we could have that still provided the necessary transit link, but operating it in a much different way than fixed route. Just like fixed route says, it's on a fixed schedule and a fixed route that it operates in. Microtransit can operate in all the small streets. It's more flexible and it can get closer to where the residential base would be. And then it's also easy to modify the service area. The green area there is where the Manassas Park microtransit zone is, but we can easily move that if we needed to. If a new development opened, if we see that ridership isn't so well in a certain area, it's a lot easier to do that than it is from a traditional bus route. Next slide, please. What this map shows is how the zone looks on top of the existing fixed route network. What we did was we made it so you could still access the fixed route by using microtransit, by using the app, using the website, or calling customer service, and then you would schedule the ride. It would then take you to either any place that you're going to within the zone, or if you needed to transfer to a bus route to complete your trip, it would take you to our hub down by the Prince William County Courthouse, or even along a bus stop along Route 28 or somewhere else where the routes do overlap, just to give the people out of their neighborhoods and into the main network. The other thing that we did was we commingled it with our paratransit operations, meaning that the same operator may do both. Previously, it would be an operator and a van just for paratransit and an operator and a van just for microtransit, and that becomes inefficient. You have two operators and two vans. By commingling it, it now makes you more efficient because you can, if you're done with a paratransit trip, the driver may be sent a microtransit trip to keep them moving. So we can just fill in as we go along versus just having a van just sitting there and another one just moving around. This allows us to cut down on some duplication. Next slide, please. Now, the difference with paratransit and microtransit is how we actually run the service. The span of service is the same. It runs Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it's free just like everything else. But paratransit is a curb-to-curb service versus microtransit, which is corner to corner, meaning that we set up virtual bus stops so the van could stop in a safe place to pick up the person, just not exactly where they are necessarily. Paratransit does have to go there. Microtransit is a hybrid of a fixed route bus system, so it can stop at some place that's still convenient, but not exactly at the door. It keeps the van moving better. And when you book your trip, it'll tell you exactly where you have to go, where that closest location is to where you're requesting it in that zone. It gives you walking directions. It gives you verbal directions. So it helps anybody who may have, and it translates it into other languages. So whatever it is to help that person get to the stop, the system will do that for you. Next slide, please. We're also doing continued growth with the service. We were running it in Manassas Park starting in December. And then in June, we launched a new zone in the Dumfries-Quantico Triangle area, which is the zone that's shown here on the map. In the town of Quantico, We do have, it's in the base. So we wanted to make sure we could tie that into the rest of the system, and we have a different system to be able to help those passengers get from the town of Quantico into the rest of the county, connected in with our bus routes. Unlike Manassas Park, where that was replacing an underutilized route, this is running in conjunction with a successful transit service that we already have. So this is a different way that you can operate the service so they can complement each other versus in Manassas Park where it was actually replacing something. So this launched June 5th. This operates 7 days a week, and so far so good with it. Next slide. The other unique feature about the new Eastern Zone is how we're actually running it, or who's running it. Manassas Park, we're running it completely with the vans that you'll see at the top of the screen here, the OmniRide Connect vans. On the eastern side, we have a joint venture with Yellow Cab to help us primarily with reaching the town of Quantico residents. Their drivers have the DBIDS cards necessary to get on base. Our operators do not, but we're working on that as well to help enhance that as well, so we can have even more service going in there. But Yellow Cab is another way to help us expand the service without it always having to be OmniRide running it. And so that's running really well too. They were used to running in and out of Quantico for us because they were doing a shuttle service before the microtransit launched. So they have they understand how it works to get in and out of the base. They know the clientele because of all the work that they've done from us previously. But now we have an extra zone that they can go into. So now we can take people down 234 to the Target, or deeper into Triangle to some of the other residential that's in there that we couldn't get into there before. Next slide, please. The microtransit service is also our gateway to zero emissions. We just completed our zero emissions bus study, which Lucas's team helped us out with, and we really appreciate that. One of the things we identified is what's the quickest way for us to pivot to it. The big bus still is going through its growing pains. There's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of research that still needs to be done on that because it's still an emerging technology. On the smaller vehicle side, though, it's more prominent. It's more proven. You can charge your vehicles up at multiple locations. You don't always have to just come back to the yard the way that you would the big bus. So we see that as a way for us to introduce electric vehicles to the fleet by launching it on our paratransit and our microtransit services and start off there. Also replacing our staff cars, our service vehicles, getting that small vehicle fleet out of the way and getting that electrified and off of the fossil fuels. And then with the bigger buses, we'll work on a longer term transition plan with how we actually get to it. But we have a plan in place to be able to upgrade our Western maintenance facility, as shown in the diagram on the top, where we have sawtooth bays constructed. We would have them constructed for the vans. And then we have areas located for charging stations for our staff cars, our work cars, and in the front of the building for visitors, employees to also charge their vehicles if they had electric as well. Next slide, please. And this is my contact information. If anybody has any questions beyond this meeting, I'm more than happy to discuss things with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Perrin. And now we're going to give Lucas a chance to share his screen. I'll do a little tap dance. Oh, he didn't take long. I didn't have to embarrass myself much. Okay. Sure. And next up, we've got Lucas Muller from Kimley Horn.
All right, thank you, Holly. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
We can. It's a little bit like you're at the bottom of a well, but not bad.
Okay. Let me know if I need to speak up, but I'll speak loudly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lucas Muller. I'm a transit and mobility planner with Kimley Horn, and been fortunate to work with OmniRide for probably almost 10 years now on various planning initiatives, and have seen the organization grow and advance a lot. It's been fun to be a part of that. For this specific effort, we are focusing on the Commuter Assistance Program Strategic Plan, which is very related to the TDM programs that Holly discussed at the beginning. Really about all the ways that we can get out of get people out of their cars and commuting and traveling with multimodal options. So that's what we'll be talking about today. And just so you do have a heads up, there will be a couple of points where they asked them some questions. So definitely looking for feedback as we go through this about what ideas you might have and feedback on the strategies. So I'm going to start by giving just a brief overview of the programs that are currently offered by OmniRide, predominantly by Holly and Lakeisha here and their team. And then we have some new ideas, new or expanded programs that we are proposing as part of this strategic plan to help improve and enhance the commuter assistance programs. And then we'd like to hear from you about some employer opportunities for partnerships, how we can best work with you and some of your employees and constituents to help get the word out and advance some of these strategies. So you're probably most familiar with OmniRide bus services, like Perrin mentioned and talked about, but there are a number of other programs that OmniRide offers that deal with promoting other multimodal options. So really making the most of the existing and new infrastructure through transit, ride sharing, walking, biking, and teleworking. So anything we can do to reduce the single occupant vehicle travel. One of those main items is the ride matching services. So anyone who is interested in doing a carpool or vanpool or slugging can get free assistance from OmniRide. There's also vanpool assistance that is a little bit more targeted specifically to vanpools in terms of providing incentives, as well as just kind of coordination to help find people. And OmniRide is also involved and kind of a partner with the Vanpool Alliance, which is the East Coast's largest vanpooling program, and helps support travel through both the 95 and the I-66 and some other corridors as well. In addition to that, OmniRide, this has been a focus for OmniRide, especially over the past couple of years, really increasing the presence and engagement with the community. We're here today at the Employer Council. We had a meeting yesterday with the Hispanic Council, and there's also a Vanpool Council. So this was a recommendation actually that came out of the previous transportation demand management plan to convene these community groups. So we thank you for being a part of that and helping us continue the dialogue. A lot of work is spent doing employer programs. So any employer in Prince William, Manassas Park is entitled and has available free support for helping their employees with travel and transportation options. And that's something that the OmniRide team can support with and can conduct meetings, consultations, any ideas or things that you have. Holly and Keisha can help you with that. Kind of more on the customer side, there is a network of Rider Express alerts, so people can sign up to get alerts to their phone and other devices when there are service changes. Mobile applications that talk about that allow for ticketing, real-time information, and use of the microtransit service that Perrin was mentioning. And then some of the other opportunities in terms of travel training and youth and community engagement. So looking for opportunities always to go out and meet with members of the community. Travel training is a really interesting program that can provide resources to help people that may not have used transit or not used bus or transit in the area to really do a hands-on approach to help them feel more comfortable able to be using their transit services. So as we develop our strategic plan, we want to build on that really strong base of services that OmniRide has, but certainly acknowledge that there's currently a limited set of staff and resources and time. So one of the benefits of this strategic plan will kind of allow us to paint the picture of why there is a need for additional resources and help for that. So this is a data-driven approach, as well as conducting these types of conversations with stakeholders like you to develop these types of strategies. We looked at a lot of demographic and travel pattern analysis. I'll share some of those high-level findings today. If you're interested in getting more into the weeds, feel free to reach out. This is a plan that's required by the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation in order to receive state funding, which is a lot of the funding that OmniRide, especially the ride sharing portions, receive. So it's important to get this completed and have it be a helpful document. So we are fairly far along in this process. We've developed a draft set of goals and objectives. We've conducted our data market analysis, and we've identified some draft strategies and potential funding sources. And now we're conducting our stakeholder outreach. We have an additional meeting next week with some members from the public sector as well. And then we would be going in the July meeting to the commission to seek adoption of the plan. So with that, we have a set of 4 goals that came from the Commuter Assistance Strategic Plan, really building on the overall strategic plan for OmniRide, as well as some of the key initiatives of the jurisdictions in the region. The key themes here: expanding the use of alternatives to SOB travel, building partnerships in the community, and expanding engagement, and supporting the growth of the area. So, all of these efforts that we do in transportation have those broader benefits, and really trying to strengthen those partnerships. I mentioned the data analysis and the market assessment that we did, and some interesting challenges and opportunities for OmniRide itself as an organization. So, while we are primarily focused in the Prince William County area, we certainly can't ignore that it's no secret that many of the commuting patterns are largely focused on other parts of Northern Virginia and DC. So it can be a wide geography of area to cover. When we do look more in the more local area, the land use and the setup in terms of having free parking and less walkable sections are certainly a challenge and can deter people from using public transportation. And while OmniRide does have a lot of good transit frequency and coverage throughout the county and the area, there are certainly some areas that are not covered. And challenges that there are always new people moving to the area, and also just making sure that we're communicating broadly and clearly about the services. We can put the best service out there, but if people don't know about them, it's not going to be helpful. So those are some challenges, but also, the opportunities here, we have a lot in terms of a growing network of park and ride lots. I'm sure many of you have seen the new ones along the I-66 corridor, the express lanes, while they provide they provide travel options, but also there's a lot of opportunities to take advantage of the reliability and faster speeds that they offer without having to pay the tolls if you are ride sharing or using transit. There was also a series of regional programs that OmniRide partners with through the MWCOG Computer Connections programs, and again, certainly want to leverage partnerships with representatives from employers like you, as well as regional, state, and federal funding sources to fund these programs. I want to share this map because I think it's pretty cool to see this, and it may be a little overwhelming, but what you're looking at is the commuting patterns of people that live in Prince William County. So the larger the line and the larger the dot, is essentially where people are conducting work trips. So kind of, you see those longer distance trips, from the Manassas and Gainesville area in the northern and the west. And then around that kind of Potomac Mills, you see a big kind of hub. So a lot of those, the shorter trips, the shorter arrows you see kind of within the county there. And then those longer ones really kind of align pretty well with some of the commuting services that OmniRide currently offers into Washington, D.C., into the Pentagon. You see a dot up in Tysons, Merrifield, the Loring, and a little bit up the 28 corridor as well. So interesting to just kind of see those patterns. So we use that data. We use some of what we know from the success and lessons learned from the previous strategies, and have developed a list of about 8 potential new or expanded programs that we want to share with you today. And we'll ask for some feedback as we get going here. So feel free, when I get to the question, feel free to come off mute or add in the chat. But so the first one is about strengthening data collection and distribution. You might say, oh, great, like that sounds, what does that mean? But really what this helps get at is answering these seemingly simple questions that we don't have as much information as we would like to on. Things like, where's my bus? How do I know when my bus is coming? Where do people get on or off the bus? OmniRide does have technology on the buses to try to assess this information, but it can be a challenge to have that be reliable technology as well as get that information out to the public. If you think about getting on a bus, you can, if you do have a fare, you may be able to track where people get on, but you don't know where people get on, right? And if you're not charging fare, then it can be hard to know. That data really helps OmniRide and others plan for future service as well. So we really want to kind of strengthen that, get better reliability for those automatic passenger counters, and make sure that information, especially about the vehicle location, is being communicated to the public. The second one is about mobile applications. So OmniRide's done a lot in the past few years about really making some mobile applications that have been helpful and received positive feedback from users. But one of the things about that is that right now there are 4 mobile applications that kind of have different functions. And so one of the longer term recommendations that we're making is to work to try to consolidate those into hopefully one mobile application that can be a one-stop shop for users. This will help streamline the experience for both the user, but then OmniRide on the back end too, not having to maintain multiple applications and to help reduce confusion. So that is one that we think would benefit both the customer as well as OmniRide. The third is continuing to support regional vanpool programs. OmniRide does a great job of this as well, but we certainly want to continue that. I mentioned the Vanpool Alliance, which has a really strong presence, especially on the I-95 corridor. There is a newer flexible vanpool program that is being done by MWCOG, the Commuter Connections. This is more kind of like real-time vanpooling, so rather than having a set schedule, you can kind of request a ride on a day that you might need it, or if you're going somewhere different. We see this as a market specifically to focus in efforts on the I-66 corridor, given the relative new nature of the express lanes network and park and rides. We think that the I-95 corridor is more saturated at this point with vanpooling, and there's more opportunities for growth on the I-66 corridor as well. The fourth, switching gears a little bit more to the community and outreach side, is making audience-specific marketing materials. So right now, there are materials that are shared about OmniRide services, but we found from our research and just talking with other agencies is the more that we can make those materials targeted to specific audiences, whether that be employers, a different language, or new commuters, or about a specific, about a specific geography. Those are the most effective materials. And while that's a little bit, that's easy to say and seems logical, preparing those types of materials, both the content development, the publication, that does take time and effort. So I want to make sure that that's highlighted here. But really to get the word out. So one of the questions we had here, just wanted to pause again and see if people from the council have any suggestions about maybe what materials or services would be helpful to promote to your entities, and if there's a best or suggested method for communication of those materials. If anyone wants to share their thoughts or perspectives on what might be from your organization's perspective, what might be helpful to have more information about from OmniRide.
Feel free to unmute and share. And if you're shy, put it in the chat and I'll read it.
Good morning. This is Raymond Beveridge, and most people on the call that know me know that I'm not shy, that I'll jump up.
And we love you for it.
There's number one I'd like to bring in, and when we're talking about audience specific, and I was shocked when Prince William County in their latest comprehensive plan update, they actually identified where food deserts were, particularly in the East and the West. Now, this in the greater realm of health and human services marketing, that would be interesting to take their maps that are in there and lay on top of that the local routes. And then that can be targeted, and then they'd pull in, because we have, well, Giant and Food Lion are all a-hole. They're one same corporation, but they both talk about being in the community, money grants available to the transportation people. But as employers, they have an interest there. And of course, since nutrition is essential to health, well, it all goes hands in hands, and possibly then the local, the two of the three largest local general purpose forms of governments might get a little bit more focused on these local routes and how we want to use them. The second is, and I see she's on the call. I think she's still on the call. Was Rosalind Gibbons from?
Yeah, she just had to jump off.
Okay.
Yeah.
At your recent senior resource fair, I made a point for Parent and her to talk, because for UVA Health, it's not so much getting as they've realigned between here and Haymarket. That's always been a transportation issue. In the past, Holly, you remember we had a discussion with the Transform 66. They wanted to get vans for the hospital, but that went nowhere. But we need to look at that, because I have been updated by her to say our real issue is getting from Haymarket to Prince William. So that's another one when we're looking at commuter assistant programs. This is an area it's kind of we're expanding into that, if nothing else, as we continue to unravel COVID, that transportation is one of those key facets. And that was, by the way, a big discussion last Thursday when I was at the Virginia Behavioral Health Summit in Richmond with the Virginia Hospital Healthcare Association. Transportation is a major factor. The social, that's a whole discussion. But those two in particular, the fact that the county put in the food desert maps after 16 years, like reading those comp plans, I was shocked, and then applauded. And on a personal note, Lucas has got the right last name, Muller. My mother's side of the family. Muller's out of Boston. So just just a personal note, Lucas.
Great, love it. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the feedback. That's really helpful. And transportation, I think hear the stat that transportation is the highest cause of missed healthcare appointments, and that is certainly an option. I think there is a movement in this transportation demand management field, I would say, to, traditionally it had been focused on 9-to-5 commuters. And I think there's generally a movement, we're seeing that in a lot of different agencies, to focus not just on that type of commute, but just supporting travel for any time, for any purpose, and not just those long distance commuting trips.
Yeah, because having formerly sat for many years on the board of Independence Empowerment Center, one of the centers for independent living, one of the rules from federal law is these resource centers for persons with disabilities, their families, and their caregivers must be on a public transportation route.
Okay.
And because when you're looking at the clientele, a lot of them are persons with disabilities. And that's why here in the West, after 16 years of strong advocacy, I'm just dancing in the street constantly with microtransit. And Parent and Joe and Holly know how much I really, really appreciated that we've gotten that going. Saturday service, I'm really crazy about. So
Yeah.
things that go, but I want those two were the big because the health centers, transportation of the health centers, which actually VTrans 2040. That was one when they were particularly looking at their chapter on aging. That was one of the things that they got identified on their master maps, where were all the health centers. And as that whole model changes in Northern Virginia, extending all the way out to Winchester, Ionova now is working with Valley Health. We got all kinds of dynamics going on in the health arena. But I'm looking forward to looking at the draft of this plan. If I have any more comments, I'll pass them along.
Great, thank you. Yeah,
Now I'll be quiet.
that's all right. No, thank you. I wanted people to speak up, so that's good. Let's see. Okay, next slide. So the previous one was about the materials themselves and how we can develop those to be targeted for audiences. It's very linked to this one, number 5, expanding strength and targeted engagement efforts. So this is a little bit more about taking those materials and going to communities where they are. And in terms of looking, and this is something that Holly and Keisha already do a lot of, but again, there is only so much time in the day. And so, looking for different additional events, additional partnerships to build, certainly looking to build those connections, especially in the local areas. We got a lot of good suggestions yesterday on the Hispanic Council meeting about events or communities to go to, especially churches and community service or community organizations and community centers. And so always looking for more suggestions in terms of events or organizations that we can partner with. We've found that really reaching out and going to where people are is really the most effective way to engage with them, to build trust, and to communicate programs. You can just send mass emails, but that's not going to get the job done. Needing to go in person and understand and build those connections. So if there's any kind of events or organizations that you think we should make sure we partner with, I'd say let's add those to the chat, and Holly can make sure that we follow up with you on those, or if we have some time and we can come back to that. The next one I want to talk about is related to park and ride lots. So this has come up a lot. I think that we're in a very unique situation here with the I-66, the new park and ride lots, as well as the express lane, right? If you look at the park and ride lots on 95, especially pre-COVID, I mean, they were jam-packed. People were parking on the grass. there was not much space there. On I-66, there was now a lot new capacity that was built as part of that Transform 66 project. A lot of these parking rides have direct access to the managed lanes via ramps. And they have bus service and they have parking for van pools and carpools. So, but this is one where I think really could benefit from more specific advertising and promotion of these options. Things about making park and ride specific information sheets about available commute options, reaching out to HOAs or other organizations in the area to talk about what options are available. And these are all ways that if people are traveling with 3 or more people in their vehicle, will not have to pay the sometimes large express lane toll, especially if they're going from Gainesville into DC. That can add up very quickly, as you may know. So this is again something we target for 66. There may be opportunities to expand it further as well. The next one is something that I think this group might be particularly interested in. Omniride's going to be starting later this calendar year in establishing what's called the Best Workplaces for Commuters program. This is something that it had started in Florida. A lot of areas in Virginia have adopted it. And organizations like OmniRide can be what's called partners to this and help work with individual employers to get them essentially certified and recognized as a best workplace for commuters. This helps give kind of a standardized set. It gives a lot of resources to help your employees understand about what their travel options are. One of the priorities that we've heard from talking with the county and with the cities is just trying to maintain and retain workers locally and not quote unquote lose employees to the other areas of the region. And the more we can do to have people feel comfortable and feel able to use those travel options to get to their employer is really helpful. So more information to come about this over the next months to year about potentially how your employer could get involved. This is a great way for employers to kind of promote themselves, advertise as a best workplace for commuters, and help give more resources to their employees. The last one here is about supporting development of first mile, last mile connections. So OmniRide already and Prince William County DOT already work very closely on different transportation projects to look to make sure that transit bus stops are incorporated into development, that there are pedestrian connections to transit stops, but there's always room for more of that to make sure that we're expanding there. This is tricky sometimes with the land use in the Prince William County area. Some areas are more conducive to walking and biking than others, but things like especially around rail station, park and rides, these are real areas that we want to make sure are focused on. And again, the county and OmniRide have been doing a great job of coordinating this. We want that to continue. So that's kind of the draft list of strategies that we are proposing. We had a few kind of discussion questions that we wanted to raise, but if there are any feedback or comments about the strategies that I talked about, feel free to share about that. Looking for feedback on which of these might be most valuable or should be prioritized. Are there opportunities for your organization to be a partner? And is there anything that we missed that we might want to include on here? So thank you for listening to that. I hope these are some interesting ideas that may be of interest to you, and curious to hear your feedback.
Lucas, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Todd. I am the PR and marketing person at the Nova Manassas campus. And I came into the call a little late, so I missed some of the earlier discussion. You were mentioning there are 3 areas that I want to just give some feedback on as it pertains to our students and their utilization of the services through OmniRide. In particular, the OmniRide College Pass has been a wonderful, valuable asset for our students, but I do see other opportunities for us to expand in partnering with you all in more areas. And as you mentioned, microtransit, and again, like I said, I missed a part of that discussion, but currently our campus since COVID, and actually all of the Nova campuses, have been planning our scheduling where most of our classes are a 60-40 split, where 60% of our classes are in person and 40% have been online. We're about, because we are seeing a demand and a high request for more in-person classes, we're about to shift that scheduling to an 80%, 20% breakout. So that's going to mean potentially an increase in ridership for those students who've been using the OmniRide services. So one of the issues that our students have is needing to make sure that there's enough flexibility with the transportation schedule to enable them to actually get to their classes in timeframes that are more convenient than having to come 2 hours ahead of the class time and then wait because of the scheduling isn't compatible to their class schedule needs. So I don't know if the micro transit option is something that can be that can incorporate offering some flexibility with servicing the campuses, since they are a little more flexible seemingly with the scheduling. If that's an option to kind of look at targeting our students and the college student population for building a program with your micro transit options to the college student needs.
Thanks, Karen. That's a great point, and interesting to hear about the kind of the desire for more in-person classes. I don't know if Perrin, are you still on? Do you want to talk about the microtransit potential?
Sure. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm Perrin Palestrant, Director of Planning and Service Delivery. We currently have 2 microtransit zones. So we need to let that settle down before we evaluate expanding it further and then looking at how that would integrate with our normal fixed route service. Within Manassas, you can connect in with the 65N that does go to the Manassas Nova campus at the Prince William County hub. And then on the eastern side, we have it in the Dumfries Triangle area that could connect to the Dumfries route that goes to the Nova Woodbridge campus. Whether we actually implement one that goes specifically to the campuses, that depends on what the zone would look like. It depends on resources. We'll certainly take that into consideration, and we'll see how that could fit in there. But it's certainly an idea. We've been speaking with Mike Blackwell and other folks at Nova as well, as far as promoting transit options. And with the services being 0 fare, that helps. You don't even need the student pass that we used to have because we're free right now. So that's even a barrier that's out of the way. But we'll continue to look at where new zones make sense to start up as we look at expanding it.
And thank you for that, Perrin. And regarding your efforts to consolidate your mobile apps, as you know, students love the accessibility of the mobile apps to be able to get the information they need at their fingertips. When you do the consolidation, I don't know I'm not sure what the current apps offer in terms of their functionality that are different, but if there's a way to build anything into the app regarding their programming, when you consolidate them, anything that would actually help students be able to navigate that whole OmniRide system. A lot of our students are new to utilizing public transit, and so helping to, like, I don't know, educate them with a OmniRide 101 kind of app program that they could quickly learn about how you find your schedule, how you use all of the services. That would be helpful. Something that's like a tutorial built into that app system. would be helpful. And then the last thing was, for the targeted marketing opportunities, between the two campuses, Woodbridge and Manassas, we have about 20,000 students. I don't know how many of them utilize the OmniRide services, but to kind of parlay into the conversation about the mobile apps, I don't know what, I would like to see some intentionality with targeting college students as a market for OmniRide, to see what specifically our students need or want. And that's an opportunity to really build a larger population of ridership from our students. Many of them do not have access, especially Manassas and campus, because of our demographic, to their own transportation and depend on public transit. So if there is an opportunity there to build a targeted campaign, I want to throw out there the college student as a potential niche for you guys to look at.
That's a really good suggestion. Thanks. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
And jumping in on college students with Karen, and Perrin and I talked about this a little bit at that meeting at the mall. Now that the new owners of the mall are letting OmniRide come back to the mall. Once upon a time, as Karen was mentioning, the college students would ride from wherever to the mall and then catch the GMU shuttle out to the campus for classes. I don't know how that is, the GMU shuttle is working anymore with that, since I've stopped writing checks to GMU. My son has long graduated. So I don't owe GMU any more money, but that's another one of those tie-ins with the connection, particularly as, and I remember reading some of the propaganda from the city of Manassas Economic Development about the partnership with Nova for the money for the certificate programs and all that. So that's another piece that was out there on the college students that might want to relook at, is what's going on with the GMU shuttle and how that is integrating across again.
Yeah, we have frequent meetings with the GMU staff. In fact, we have a quarterly meeting where Mike Blackwell from Nova and then a couple folks from GMU are on there. We discussed this. One of the things that I had been pushing them to do was to stop at the Balls Ford commuter lot rather than the mall, because we have local bus access to there. People could park their car there and take the bus, and then it would go around the express lanes. And then they do have that interface with us at the mall. So we do discuss how we can kind of complement each other. They're running about every 40 minutes, I believe, on their routes that go back and forth between Manassas and Fairfax. Now the express lanes are open. I think they're trying to make it run a little more frequently, but yeah, we are certainly in contact with them as well about how we can kind of offset each other.
Great. Any other thoughts or suggestions about the proposed strategies?
I have one other.
Go for it.
Like I said, Holly and Perrin and Jordan and all are used to me. When you got to that part about best place to work kind of thing for commuters, one of the things, and it's been a long debate with me and off and on through the years with OmniRide staff, what is a commuter? Are we including, say, someone who lives in Woodbridge by Government Center, but works at the Food Lion in the city of Manassas? And now with the Route 20, with some of the realignment in the West and the connections, but when we define an employer and his commuters, and particularly essential workers, the term that has long been forgotten, but those people that work grocery stores, the restaurants, maybe we should also look at those, because when you look at the 50 largest employers in the city of Manassas, Food Lion is something like 35, and Giant, I think, was number 30, but they're right up there. When you look at that list of top 50, target those industries, because some of them, their worker bees are commuting. In fact, at Food Lion, one young lady said, well, if there was a stop by my house, I would ride Food Lion, and I live here in the city. I said, well, have you looked for the new stops as they phased in the new stops and the microtransit? So that's an example. I'm just hearing this to employees talking to each other in Food Lion and go, wait a second, let me toss in my 2 cents. This define a commuter, because traditionally, and I love that scatter graph, because I looked at Manassas and I went, geez, that almost looks like the constellation of Orion, the 3 big stars and reaching out. So that just one might want to explore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I mentioned, I think the definition of commuter, I think, is changing a lot.
Yes.
As changing the times that people travel, the distances, the types of people. So I think, this is literally this is a work trip. This is showing all work trips. And so, to me, someone going from, say, here to here might not normally be called a commuter. But I think as we think about this going forward, I think we have to treat all of those people as commuters, because they're going to their work. It may not be a 9-to-5 office job, but they're going, to work, and they deserve transportation options, and they probably need it, arguably more so than the person going, to go work downtown in DC. So I think that's something we want to get across in this plan, is that commuters can mean a lot of different things.
Thank you.
All right, any last minute things that anyone wants to share before we wrap up? I will point out, while folks are maybe thinking of anything that they do want to add, that the recording for today's call, as well as the presentations for today's call, will be out on the OmniRide Council's page, which is on our website, easy to find. If you can't find it, shoot me an email. And we will definitely be following up with all of you that are on this call with a thank you, and send you a link to that as well to make it even easier.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, I haven't heard anything else. So thank you again for everyone for joining, and happy 4th of July in advance. We're getting close.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's you and me. I think you're still on mute.
Do I
There we
stop
go.
the recording, or can you stop the recording?
Oh, let me see. Hang on. Close. Pause, stop recording. Pause or stop. Are you sure you want to stop recording to the cloud? I'm going to say